This show is supported by you. Stick around till the ad break to hear more. This is Kappa Go for June 19th, 2024. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Shai Nechmad.
I'm Erik. I'm Suchith. I'm Hiji.
I'm John.
But not the John you're thinking about.
A different John.
And we are in beautiful waterside Amsterdam. We arranged this Go meeting here because I came for DevOps Days, and it's right near here. And we might edit Jonathan here saying he's sorry for not coming, but it's not his fault. He missed the flight. So we'll try to do our best to do an episode.
It's not his fault because he missed the flight, because his flight was delayed or something. So if he missed the flight, then it's his fault. Oh, we still have Jonathan.
We have a different John.
Yeah.
This is wish.com John.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So because we're recording on a Wednesday, we don't have the meeting minutes of the proposals. And we covered, if you remember last week, really interesting proposals like Gabby Help, V2 encoding JSON, move HTTP2 into the standard library, some things that there are discussions, not yet proposals, and a proposal that got accepted about Mathrend using the global seed no operation to make it safer. Because we don't have any new proposals, we decided to do sort of a Reddit review. It's also more conductive to discussions. So the first question I have for the Amsterdam Go meetup group is, if you were to write a GUI application, which GUI library would you choose, and would it even be in Go? So for Pokey, you don't use a Go for like GUI, right? For the front end.
No, because it's all web-based, so it's React. I must say I've never really written many GUI applications. I don't even know which libraries there are for Go to do this. I would have to investigate that initially, see if there's anything usable, and otherwise I would be really tempted to use at least some kind of web library so I can do my GUI in HTML.
Yeah.
But then maybe with bindings to Go if my program itself is written in Go.
So one of the, I was in a reserve duty for a while when the October War started. One of the people who replaced me on the show was Andy Williams. He's the person behind the Fine project. Fine is a GUI framework for Go. Okay. You're writing main. In main, you write Go code, and you press run, and it opens a GUI application, which is very weird at first. So this thread is all about that. Most people agree with you, Erik. They say, I'm not going to use Go for GUI. I'm going to do other things in Go, and I'm going to pick a language that has more support. I do think it's important to separate GUI from TUI, right? From terminal UI. For terminal applications, there's a lot of libraries, right?
Yeah.
Have you used any? Maybe Charm Bracelet or Cobra or things like that?
I have developed a lot of the TUIs in the past, but none were after Charm was out. But nowadays, I would definitely use the Charm.
Yeah, Charm Bracelet is really cool. They have a
lot of cool projects besides it. I also would totally recommend to write a native G instead of trying to do something using something else, because it's much better for user experience.
For sure. So we thought about GUI library. Obviously, Go's not super for that, right? The discussion on Reddit is raging, but there is a interesting another thing in Reddit about a new web framework called Caesar. So if you had to write a web, API or something like that, what framework would you use right now?
I would use the standard library.
That's the answer I'm looking for.
Of course, yeah.
Go standard library. You don't need anything else.
Exactly.
But if you do want a framework, if you don't care about it being opinionated,
I would use another language.
So
it's like, that's a good thing about Go. Like, that's the standard library. It's quite simple, as opposed to some frameworks, God forbid this convention.
Yeah, Django, Phoenix, Laravel, Ruby on Rails. So if you do like all these frameworks, you can use something called Caesar. It's a new thing. It's making the rounds. People like it a lot. And on the webpage, the first question they have is, why do I even need a web framework? Which makes a lot of sense. But it is, at the very least, I think it's worth looking at, even if you are planning to use the standard library, just for the project structure and like the ideas, where you have a directory called application, directory for CMD, for the main, directory for config, for database, for public assets, for views. It's like, it's nice.
So I took a look at this before, and to be honest, it's not bad, but it seems like it is the interpretation of someone how they would organize their Go application. And I would say that it's Go. It's a quite straightforward language. You are pretty much better off trying to find what works for you instead of following the ideas of a
someone
framework.
else.
Yeah. So just to give you an example here, I see that they have something for dependency injection with the ORM, and I feel really uncomfortable with with it, and also specifically to the approaches they had.
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm not. I haven't tried it out yet. I just saw the post. But when I'm looking at their decisions, so they use the validator package for validation, which is what I used, and they use FX for dependency injection, which I don't agree with. I don't like FX that much, but this is just a personal preference. For ORM, they use BAN, which I like a lot. It's a very thin wrapper around the object. It's not like a big ORM thing.
Yeah,
It's basically, you basically write SQL.
So-
It's really...
I agree, but something that I noticed in BAN once. So about BAN, I took a look at its source code about maybe 1 year ago, maybe a little bit more, and I noticed that the way they run their queries, they run the queries that you execute to it. They basically re-implemented the logic for escaping the data. So they don't use the drivers escaping. So for me, that's kind of a risk.
Say what
And-
now?
Yeah, they
They
basically
don't use like prepared statements.
no, that was what I was going to say next. It's not even that they don't use prepared statements. They don't even use the drivers escaping. They implemented their own escaping. For me, that's like too much. This is why I like to keep the number of dependencies low. I try to do everything as much as possible using the standard libraries and the libraries that I really trust.
Cool. So if you're looking for a quick start, they have a really good quick start guide. Try it out. I think it's worth looking at the decisions they made. It's basically connecting a lot of different tools. For example, if you like task file, they use task file. If you like BAN, they use BAN. If you want a more bring your own, choose modular framework, maybe take a look at GoKit, where you can pick whatever you want to use, and it's easy to not use what you don't want to use. But if you are writing web, I think it is really important to at least take a look, because the structure is really good.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're quite new to Go and you want to build something web-based in Go, then it's a good way to start. But yeah, it's opinionated, but if you don't know Go that well, you need those opinions.
Yeah. Okay. So our show, I'm selling this for the people here, who none of them are listeners, by the way, listeners. The news portion is around 15 minutes. So we have 5 minutes left. There's one interesting thing, how to prove that I'm good at Go apart from having work experience. So there's someone already, they want to move jobs. They want to find a job as a Go developer, which was a lot easier a year ago. Let's be fair. The market is really hard right now, right? It's very much cooled down. And there's a question, how do I prove that I'm good at Go other than, recommendations from my previous workplace? I think it's a very interesting topic because so much of Go is open source. So much of the Go project is open source. But for someone who's not a core contributor, wrote all the compiler themselves, what is the, quick wins? You want to find a job right now? You want to prove your Go worth? What would you look for?
I actually looked for a Go developer a while back, so a good one. We were looking for, in my company, a senior Go developer.
This episode sponsored by... No, I'm just kidding.
To find a good Go developer, open source projects that you have on your GitHub is important. If I can see you have a decent open source project that you work on, that's a plus. In an interview, I would ask questions about the Go runtime, how certain things work.
For example, How does CPU profiling work?
Well, except or how
That was a discussion that should have been recorded.
Yeah, for sure. That was gold, man.
maybe something more basic, like how does the garbage collector work? Like
Yeah.
if you want to write something fast, why is it better to not generate garbage? And how do you not generate garbage? That's something quite internal to Go that most developers really don't have to care about. But if you know about it, it really shows that you have deep knowledge.
I think previous project really is because if someone has a project that's more than the basic to-do app,
Yeah.
whatever, I can ask them. We just talked about preferences, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you developed a open source web thing just for the resume. And I see you don't use any ORM. I would ask like, why don't you use ORM? And if you were a bad developer, you would say, I don't know, man, that's just what ChatGPT told me. But your explanation was so deep and nuanced, I would understand you have a deeper understanding of the topic than just what the code is showing me.
That might backfire as well.
Yeah, though, if you, let's say the first tip I think this table can give is don't suck, right? Actually be good. So you have something to prove. I think other than having your own project, a bigger indicator for me is your ability to contribute to a big existing project, right? If at your work right now, your company is using, I'll give an example from Orca, where I work. We use Kix, which is open source security, something, whatever, that under the hood uses Rego, which is the open policy agent language. So if you have contributions to Rego, which is cloud, CNCF project, has maintainers, super important, your code gets reviewed, you have a discussion, etc., that indicates a lot more about your ability to actually work at the company and that you're actually good at programming in Go and not just coding in Go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the answer, right? So it kind of depends.
It depends.
Because
Is the
if you're-
senior developer
If you're doing something like really high performance stuff, or whatever you mentioned, like knowing the internals of the runtime, and then like, oh, okay, don't create garbage because,
Yeah.
and also kind of what we do because let's say you have a garbage collector and even with some additional processing, if you end up adding a few milliseconds or so, causes jitter. So those kind of
Yeah. Just for context, he's talking about web conferencing software written in Go. It's like every web Go thing. You have to pass context first.
Yeah, I'm sorry. However, it is for some API layer or for some service which doesn't have a lot of traffic, right? Or think about writing some kind of operator, some kind of Kubernetes operator, like kind of did in my previous job. So in that case, you don't have a lot of traffic. So if people come from other languages, or like any language, it is fine because Go is a very simple language to pick up. And we did have developers who take up Java. They could pick up within 2 weeks.
So you're saying you can prove you're good at programming and you don't have to fixate about proving you're good in Go. Like if you're a very, very accomplished C++ or Rust or Python developer, maybe even doing projects that combine the two languages is a better bet for you. That makes sense.
So for me, the most important thing when hiring was we would send interesting candidates a simple exercise, like not one of those exercises that takes you a whole weekend, just something you can finish in half an hour if you wanted to. But the most interesting developers were the ones, it was like a performance-based thing where you had to send as many HTTP requests as possible. A lot of them had like good answers, but the more interesting developers were the ones who really dove into the problem and were really trying to figure out, okay, why is this slow or fast? Or how can I improve things? Instead of just writing what's there, go a little bit deeper and try to figure out why. As you want a good developer, you want to not just write stuff, you want to understand what they're doing and the tools they're working with. That's it.
That's another tip I can give. When I was looking for a job before I joined Orca, I asked all my friends who work at companies that I didn't necessarily want to work in, but I knew that had good engineering. Can you send me your hiring exercises just so I can go through them and like practice? And if it's relevant, upload to. I was interviewing for like VP R&D role, so it's not necessarily Go. But again, this works totally for any role. Just ask your friends that work in similar places. Can you send me the hiring exercise and I'll give you some feedback. Most companies will be happy to do that, like if they trust you. Cool. And the last thing, it's not Reddit, it's from YouTube. It's a new video called "Where Should I Learn Go?" And the question is, where should I learn Go? So, where did you learn Go?
Good question. I think back in 2013, when I was learning Go, I was working on a system that needed to be able to handle a lot of HTTP requests per second. I made an implementation in C, C++, Node.js, something else, and Go. And then compared performance and like how easy it was to like write something, understand it. And that's where Go shined, and I like continued with Go.
Even with performance?
So yeah,
Even with performance?
it was not
C?
as good as C, C++,
Exactly.
but the C, C++ code is so much more complex.
Yeah, it has
the
the
trade-off
tools,
is worth
yeah.
it. Anyway, to learn Go, my point of learning Go was just to build something, and especially something that you've also built in another language, so you know the ins and outs. And then when you write it in Go, you have a vague idea of how to do it, and you kind of that's a good way to learn, because you don't have to think about what you're building. You only have to think about how you build it.
Yeah. So I first of all, I totally agree that the best way is to start just building something. But if you're looking for something more structured, I recently ran a workshop at work for Python developers, trying to convert them to Go, where I taught them using Learn Go with tests, which I can totally recommend. I'll put the link in the show notes as well for any listeners who are still on this podcast episode for some reason. Someone is stuck in their car, they can't touch their phone, and they're stuck with this episode. But I can really recommend Learn Go with Tests. It's a TDD teaches you sort of like Go by example, but you also have to write a lot of tests, which is really good. And
So in our company, we don't have onboarding program. What we had is that we had some front end developers and wanted to do the back end stuff as well. And yeah, so they got some basic lessons and they had to actually work and deliver some features. So it's not just Go, they should also learn the backend stack and contribute to the existing DLP or DLP. It's of course it's longer.
Yeah.
It's also very intense.
So I think people are looking for a way to get into it because they want to start writing Go. If you work at a company that has Go developers, again, that's the easiest way to do it. But if you want to find a job doing Go, it's really, and you don't know anyone who can mentor you, then you need to find some online resources to learn, right? And also everybody learns differently. Like I taught using Learn Test with Go, maybe some people will connect more to Go by example, right? Or Go Tour or whatever. So this video just goes over the basics. Go to do Go Tour, go read that, go read Effective Go and understand all the tips. Go read, learn Go with 100 mistakes or whatever that book is called. The reason I wanted to link to this specific video is also because I really like the person who did the video. They have a ton of technical content up online about exactly the stuff I like to nerd about. Vim configuration, Tmux configuration, Linux shell, all these sort of things. So if you're into wasting time on you configuring your terminal instead of doing real work, this channel is for you. That's all we have for you for this week. Everybody wish for John a nice flight. Thanks a lot again for all my beautiful co-hosts. Do you want to tell something to the people before we close out the episode?
No, just go.
Go right, go.
So now we go.
This episode was part of the Amsterdam Go meetup group. Can you tell us a little bit about how often you meet and how can we connect to this group?
So we are on meetup.com. We don't have a fixed schedule for meetups. We do a couple a year. Mostly depends on if we can find companies to sponsor a place. That's it.
Yeah, so if you're a company
that are open.
Yeah. If you're a company in Amsterdam and you want to sponsor the Go meetup, I can personally attest that they're really nice people, so you should probably do it. Thanks a lot for listening.